This is an upgrade from our last Kenaurd. This version's 5 pins. I'm going to use my multi-pick 1.5 millimeter and then MP5. Already getting some sort of false set. Not really sure what that's from. There are serrated drivers in this guy, unlike my 4-pin had smooth drivers. I actually don't think the serrated drivers make much of a difference. You would think that, hey, serrated drivers, the serrated Mul-T-Lock, for example, is the hardest rated version of it. Why wouldn't serrated Kenaurd be hard? I think the answer to that is pretty straightforward, and it's simply that they just aren't as effective. Maybe we'll compare some after we got this guy, but I think the serrated drivers in this just aren't as executed as well, so they just don't work out as well. Kind of worked up to a continuously deeper false set. Should just have a little bit more to go, I think. Pin 5, pin 4, pin 3's got some. Two, just going through continuously tapping and finding binders. Depending on how deep serrations can be, there can also be a slight amount of counter rotation as you set them. Very deep now. Might have all the outers set. I think we do. Or at least we're close to that. Using what I'd call moderately heavy tension. There we go. That's got to be all the outers. So the serrations definitely cause you to walk it into this condition. Now we just got inners to go. 5 is our last one. Definitely felt like it. There we go. It's open. So took me a little bit of time, but it was a really fun. It's actually a really fun pick. I think the serrated drivers are more fun than the standard ones. Difficulty-wise, it's hard to say that it makes the pick harder, but it does give you a lot of those slowly moving deeper sets, which was really fun. I think it's kind of a wash, to be honest. Have to see what others think as they pick it, if they think it changes the rating at all. I would tend to think no. But I am not someone yet eligible to decide those things. I'm sure I will be someday. So I'm locked up pretty good. This is a cam with no tailpiece, as you'd probably expect. That's a Phillips 1. We'll put in a Phillips 0. You can also go through the Bible cover on this, and in this case, he's been beat up, so we're going to leave him alone and just do things via standard follower technique, which still works just fine. So, a lot of Mul-T-Locks have profile pins that make things kind of a pain in the butt. This guy does not. However, when we take off that bag, we got to make sure we're still correctly on it. Might have turned it a little too far. Don't want my drivers coming out too soon. Or my key pins, I mean. So, pretty straightforward. There's 1, 2. I typically like to put inners and then outers. Some people like to put outers and then inners. That guy was pretty high lift, you can see. So there's our 5 pins. Nothing fancy about the core. Warded the whole way through as it's not an interactive style. I guess we didn't shim properly, but I've got enough experience with the pin and pin style locks that I know all the traps and tricks they may have. So let's make sure this is oriented correctly. There's the inner popping out. And then serrations. Go ahead and get that guy out. There's just the inner. Serrations. Correct side. Just the inner. We have to reorient my light. But there's just the inner. And the serrations on the correct side. Larger pins are harder to fight with my tweezers. flip it around, makes seeing it easier. Just the inner. Serrations correctly oriented. Just the inner. And serrations correctly oriented. And then all the springs should be exactly the same. Go ahead and get those out. So there you have it. That is the 5-pin Kenaurd. Take a good look at these serrations. So normally the Mul-T-Lock serrations definitely feel a lot more difficult than one of these. Not entirely sure why. I think we should do a comparison just to look and see what makes them different. So, thankfully, I have a pack from CMFXA of Mul-T-Lock pins with the coveted Mul-T-Lock serrated pins. I think I only have one style of them. I don't know if there's multiples, but you can take a side-by-side look at the two kinds. So the Mul-T-Lock one, nice sharp inner edge. The serrations themselves, they grab a pick really nicely in both directions. If we take a look at one of these Kenaurd ones side by side, you can see that there's a lot more spacing. It's kind of hard to tell, but maybe it'd be easier if we just say set them down side by side here and looked at them that way. So here's a Mul-T-Lock serrated right next to a Kenaurd. We'll see if we can't. That's not going to be very sharp, so let's see if we can get this thing to pop into a macro. There we go. That works way better. Get some more light on it. So, the Kenaurd serration and the Mul-T-Lock serration. You can see the Mul-T-Lock serrations are way closer together. They're very sharp. Kenaurd ones are also very sharp. They're a lot further apart, and the section at the bottom is a lot thicker. I think the Kenaurd ones are also deeper. They definitely have, if you look at them in this direction, you can kind of see, it's hard to tell, but the Mul-T-Lock one you can see you can see the depth of the cuts. If you look right there and right there. And the Mul-T-Lock one definitely cut at a much more U-shaped channel, whereas these are like more of a notch, whereas the Kenaurd ones are rounded. And I think that actually makes in a dimple lock, since the movements are so much less, the pins, they don't have to move as far. There's definitely a difference in feedback from a Mul-T-Lock serrated to a Kenaurd one. The Kenaurd one gave us that I think it's a lot deeper. It gave us those kind of false sets that we got along the way that you don't get in the Mul-T-Lock version, in my experience. The feedback's also very crisp, very clear on the Kenaurd, and the Mul-T-Lock ones always feel muddy to me, which I think makes these Mul-T-Lock ones a lot harder to pick. The Kenaurd ones are actually just a lot more fun to pick, I think. They that multiple levels of false set as we go was kind of pretty cool to experience, and it makes it a lot more fun. Versus the Mul-T-Lock ones are basically feedback dampeners and make the Mul-T-Lock quite a challenge to pick when it's got those in. Versus the Kenaurd, I don't know. I wouldn't say that it's harder to pick with the serrated ones. It's different to pick with the serrated ones. I think some people will find them harder, and I think other people will find them easier. And it's just going to be, I think it's just going to come out in the wash that they're pretty much equivalent. Hopefully that shows you guys the differences between our 5-pin Kenaurd and the Mul-T-Lock, as well as just a general pick of the Kenaurd. I hope you enjoyed, and I will talk to you all later.